Hello, welcome back to the channel. I am Dungeon Master Winslow. Today we're diving into one of the most brutal dungeon crawls in Legacy of Fire, the House of the Beast. In this video, we're going to open up the world of the Brazen Peaks, break down the module's opening setup, and take a deep look at its dungeon. What makes it fun, where it struggles, and what you should know before running it at your table. I'm a big fan of this one, but there's definitely some things that you'll want to be aware of. But first, let's talk about the author. House of the Beast was written by Tim Hitchcock. He's become one of my personal favorites for Pathfinder. He's worked on a number of great adventures, including The Carnival of Tears, The Demon Within, Hungry Are the Dead, The Broken Moon, The Ruby Phoenix Tournament, and Broken Chains. And what's really interesting, before all of this, he was a science teacher and got his start by submitting articles to the Dungeon and Dragon magazines. As you can really see his style in the module, structured encounters, strong dungeon flow, and a focus on pressure and pacing. So, the story of the House of the Beast. After saving Kelmoraine, the heroes finally have a moment to breathe. They might be helping rebuild the town, opening businesses, or continuing to work for Alma and Garavel, but that peace doesn't last long. Out of the desert, a mysterious stranger arrives, a man named Zephid, who claims to be a prophet of Sarenrae. He brings a warning, and what he has to say is that the gnoll tribes of the Brazen Peaks are gathering on the slopes of the Pale Mountain, united under the banner of the Carrion King, a powerful gnoll warlord named Ghartok. Zephid urges the party to travel to the mountains to strike at the heart of this growing threat, an ancient temple known as the House of the Beast. Once inside, the adventure shifts into a full dungeon crawl, but things quickly become more complicated. The deeper the party goes, the more they begin to uncover disturbing truths. Not everything is as it seems. The gnolls are part of something bigger, and strange, horrific experiments are taking place deep within the temple. As the mystery unfolds, the party collides with one of the campaign's central plot elements, its core MacGuffin, which sets the stage for the next chapter of the adventure path. And once this discovery is made, the story pushes directly into Book 3, The Jackal's Price. Before we can even get to the House of the Beast, we need to talk about world building, because this is the module that both struggles and shines. The actual setup is surprisingly short. Zephid shows up, delivers the quests, and then he's basically gone. That entire hook, it's only about 3 pages. And then the rest of the book is dedicated almost entirely to the House of the Beast itself. And to be fair, the dungeon is massive. We're talking 7 separate maps, multiple entrances, multiple paths from the surface down into the deeper levels. When I build this in Roll20, I have to keep detailed notes just to make sure I know where all the staircases and connections go. And that's really my core issue with the module, but it's also, I think, what makes it most exciting. The real gold is the Brazen Peaks. In the back of the book, there's a section called The Shadow of the Pale Mountain, and this is where everything changes. You get a regional map with 21 different locations, each with short descriptions and adventure hooks. It's not fully developed. It's not fleshed out, but that's exactly why it's powerful. This section is a homebrewer's dream, because before you can even introduce Zephid, if you really want this module to shine, you need to build this region out. Encounters, travel, side quests, NPCs, maps. This is where the real work of the campaign begins. And I'll be honest, this is where my campaign always starts to derail. Because once you start digging into the Brazen Peaks, then you start to learn about the nation of Katapesh as a whole, which is going to lead you to source books like The Dark Markets of Katapesh. Maybe you'll check out The Towns of the Inner Sea. Now you're dealing with more. You're dealing with things like the Packmasters, slavery as a whole, the Night Stalls, the Pesh trade, entire cities like Solku, and suddenly your Go Kill the Gnolls mission has turned into a full political sandbox. If you do decide to go down that rabbit hole and you start to lean into it, you can start pulling even more. You can check out the supplemental material, The Rival Guide, which has an opposing adventuring party known as the Marrow Reavers. Or you could check out more of Tim Hitchcock's work, a little plug-in dungeon that I like called The Broken Chains. At this point, you're not running the House of the Beast anymore. you're building an entire campaign around Katapesh. Now that I think about it, I could do an entire separate video just on the world building of this region alone. But for now, we're going to bring it back to the House of Beasts itself. This module doesn't give you a full campaign. It gives you the ingredients to build one. Before you dive in the House of Beast, take the time to read the dungeon all the way through. Know the entrances, know the exits, know where the staircases go, and most importantly, know what the NPCs actually want. Because this is not a dungeon you want to run blind. There's a separate faction on the surface that can become either a combat encounter or a social one, depending upon how your players approach it. There's also a monster that regularly moves in and out of the dungeon, and smart players may be able to use that as a backdoor route in or out of the complex. And if you want to expand the infiltration options even more, Book 1 gives you material on the gnolls of the Brazen Peaks. You can easily use one of those gnoll NPCs as a guide, reluctant allies, or informants who know alternative entrances and hidden routes through the House of the Beast. And if you want to expand the infiltration options even more, Book 1 gives you material on the gnolls of the Brazen Peaks. With this, you can easily use some of the gnoll NPCs as guides, reluctant allies, or informants who possibly know alternative entrances and hidden routes through the House of the Beast. My personal favorite way in and out is the Coils of Flame supplemental material from the back of the book. It's a small side dungeon full of fire-themed creatures, and it works beautifully as a backdoor into one of the lower levels of the House of the Beast. Once you reach the deeper levels, the dungeon opens up in a really interesting way. You're going to discover that part of the complex is being used as a prison for slaves, and that those slaves have already rioted and attempted to escape. Some are trapped, some are scattered, and some may still be fighting to survive. This is going to give the players a lot of agency. The slaves can become allies, liabilities, or even rivals depending upon how your party handles these situations. There's also a great little detail involving a rival goblin party that was recently wiped out inside the dungeon. One surviving goblin is still sneaking around, harassing gnoll guards and trying to stay alive. That goblin can become a very fun ally or a reoccurring nuisance, and if the party works with them, they can also become a great source of information about the dungeon. For me, though, the star of the whole dungeon is going to be Ghartok's throne room, the maggot throne, the corpse pit, the secret pet. Do everything you can to make this encounter land. Personally, I would rebuild the Carrion King a bit, tighten up his feats, remove dead weight, and make him play like the terrifying warlord the adventurer wants him to be. I'd also hold back his pet just for a few rounds, then bring him into the fight once the party starts to settle into a rhythm. This split attention can make the encounter feel more bigger, meaner, and more chaotic. And then, once that fight is over, we get to one of my favorite NPCs in the whole adventure, Rakova. You could even introduce Rakova earlier if you want. Rakova has his own secret goal, and while it overlaps with the party's goals, he absolutely wants to use the heroes for his own benefit. He's after the deeper secret hidden inside the House of the Beast, but he can't get it himself. And this is where the dungeon gets really fun. If you pay attention to locations like the Pit of Screaming Ghosts and the Stone Speaker Chamber, you learn about the forbidden effects that prevents Rakova from entering the deeper levels. That dynamic is magical to me because it turns Rakova into a kind of Jafar figure, while the heroes become people he needs to send in the cave for him. He will help them, he will flatter them, he will guide them, he will do everything he can to convince them to go lower and retrieve the MacGuffin for him. And honestly, the party needs that push. Without it, the campaign can really lose momentum. If the heroes survive, the undead and monsters below, they eventually reach the crypt and recover the item that really matters. And that moment is huge, because the thing they find there does not just point to Book 3, it echoes all the way forward to Book 6, The Final Wish. This is one of the moments where as a DM you should be excited, because this is where the campaign stops being just a dungeon crawl and starts revealing what the Legacy of Fire is really about. The story in the back of the book, Justice Done, Betrayal Repaid, is a story about a druid Pathfinder who's been betrayed, framed for murder, and forced back into the Brazen Peaks, where they discover a dark cult and something far worse has already in motion. This story actually sets the tone perfectly. This isn't just a dungeon crawl. There are darker forces moving behind the scenes. So, This is where I have my take on the House of the Beast. This is where I start to add my own spin on the adventure. One thing I run into almost every time is that the How the Carrion King was really deadly. So I'm often introducing new characters right before or during the House of the Beast. Because of that, you need to be ready. You need to be ready to integrate new backstories quickly and even provide built-in hooks for incoming characters. And this is where the Pale Mountain region content in the back of the book really shines. That's my go-to tool for grounding new PCs in the story. My favorite additions is introducing a pilgrimage. I'll have a large group of Sarenrae pilgrims arrive from the places like Solku or Katapesh shortly after Book 1 ends. These do two things immediately. It gives Kelmoraine a population boost, and it transforms it from a ruin into a functioning town. And once that happens, the players start to care about it. There's an opportunity for a module here. You could introduce the Dawn of the Scarlet Sun. Originally tooled to be inside the city of Magnamar, it's very easy to change it to Kelmoraine because it's so focused on the Church of Sarenrae. I've also experimented with bringing a Kingmaker style rules, what someone once called Sultan Maker. This lets the players help rebuild Kelmoraine, start businesses, take on leadership roles. I don't usually run it for long. Usually it's just a few in-game months, but it gives the campaign a strong foundation before the players get pulled back into the main plot. One of my favorite homebrew additions is the Siege of the Three Jaws. By this point, the players already know about Dashki and the Three Jaw gnolls. Depending upon how things played out in Book 1, the Three Jaws might be enemies or potential allies. If they're enemies, I foreshadow it with gnoll scouts, some movement in the hills, and eventually it builds to a full-on siege of Kelmoraine. You can even hint at it early by catching Dashki sneaking in and out of town. This works great as a 1 to 2 session bridge between Book 1 and Book 2. If the players don't make enemies of them, I instead give the Three Jaws a fixed location in the region, turning them into a reoccurring faction the party can interact with on their way to the House of the Beast. There's also a great opportunity to foreshadow events inside the dungeon. I like introducing Blowbog and her goblin party early. Have them pass through the Kelmoraine on their own expedition. Keep it light. Give them names, give them personalities, because later you're just going to kill them off. And when the players find what's left of them in the dungeon, it hits harder, and it can reduce that murder hobo instinct when they encounter that one surviving goblin. I'm a big fan of failing forward. If your party wipes, maybe during the Three Jaw Siege, or doing a random encounter somewhere in the Pale Mountain region, don't reset the campaign. Fail them forward. Make them prisoners inside the House of the Beast. This opens up entirely different and honestly amazing versions of the dungeon. Now you can introduce Lazrul as a rival inside the slave hierarchy, Amwer Yusef as a despicable former master turned slave, Rakova early as a manipulative ally. You could even run a prison scenario where the PCs have to fight for status, navigate the slave system, plan an escape, and it gets really good when Rakova steps in. He becomes even more compelling. In this version, Rakova offers special treatment, gains the party's trust, then he's going to push them towards the deeper levels. He might sneak back their gear to them, or showcase them secret routes. But ultimately, his goal is to guide them forward to the Stone Speaker and the Pit of the Screaming Ghosts, all while using them to retrieve the MacGuffin he can't truly reach himself. If the party starts as prisoners, you could also get a perfect chance to foreshadow Mad Fang's experiments. You could have the mad scientist show up and randomly select slaves, taking them away and mysteriously never bringing them back. By the time the players find this lab, they already know something horrible is happening. So, what do I actually think about the House of the Beast? This is where the Legacy of Fire really finds its footing. The module itself is a large, well-designed dungeon with multiple entry points, layered encounters, strong faction potential, but on its own, it's a little thin. The story setup is short. The world building is mostly optional. And if you run it straight out of the book, it can feel like, here's the quest, now go clear out the dungeon. But if you're willing to put in some work to expand the Brazen Peaks, build out Kelmoraine, and to treat the dungeon like a living system, the module becomes something much bigger. it becomes the foundation for your entire campaign. Out of 10, I'd probably say the House of the Beast is an 8.5. Dungeon design, 9 out of 10. World building potential, 10 out of 10. But the story out of the box is lacking at a 6 out of 10. And the GM effort is high. This is not a plug and play adventure, but if you invest in it, it will absolutely pay you back. This is not the best module of Legacy of Fire, but it might be the most important one. I just want to take the time to say thank you for watching, and stay tuned for our next review on Book 3, The Legacy of Fire, Jackal's Price. And I'll see you at the table. And that's my review of the House of the Beast. If you run this module or you're planning to, let me know how it went at your table. I'd love to hear what you changed, what worked, and what didn't. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and check out the rest of the channel for more Pathfinder content. And if you're running Legacy Fire, stick around, because we'll be diving into the Jackal's Price next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the table.